Now, what leaders have been paying tribute to the former president of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, who has died at the age of 91. His reforms played a crucial role in ending the Cold War, for which he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. During the 1980s, he famously worked with then U.S. President Ronald Reagan in reducing the amount of nuclear weapons across the globe. His reforms at home inspired millions across Central and Eastern Europe. They began pushing for their own freedoms from Moscow. Communist regimes tumbled as the Berlin Wall, the most potent symbol of the Iron Curtain, came crashing down. U.S. President Joe Biden called him a rare leader who imagined a different future for his country. Russian media say Mr. Gorbachev will be buried next to his wife, Raisa, at the most prestigious cemetery in Moscow. And to discuss the man, Mikhail Gorbachev, I have joining me from our Lagos studio, Dr. Joshua Bolarinwa, who is the head security strategic studies of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's look at this man that everyone is praising at the moment for helping to end the Cold War, if indeed he ended the Cold War, considering that there's still some subtle Cold War ongoing between the West and Russia at the moment. What would you say was his greatest impact on leadership when it has to do with such specific policies as the perestroika and the glasnost and all those terms that, I mean, while some of us were growing up, we kept hearing from leaders who admired him?
Thank you. Mikhail Gorbachev was a great Soviet leader, not just a great Soviet leader. He was a very, very influential leader who had so much influence on global politics during his time. He had served the Soviet Union in so many capacities, to the extent that until 1985, when he was elected by the parliament called the Politburo, that is, leaders of the Soviet Communist Party, was elected the general secretary and eventually the de facto leader of the entire country. That was in 1985. And since that time, Mikhail Gorbachev has had so much and continued to have very big influence, not only in Russian politics, not only in the Soviet politics, but also global politics. And when he came in, he actually wanted to come in and introduce some reforms into the Soviet governance, and he also wanted to introduce some democratic principles into governance in the then Soviet Union. And he actually did not want to end the Soviet Union or Soviet grip over Eastern Europe, but he actually wanted to revitalize it, introduce reforms, and democratize or introduce certain democratic principles. And in doing this, he did so well, and that was why he was able to introduce a policy of perestroika, which actually means trying to introduce what we call a market-like reform into otherwise what has been used in Soviet Union, a state-led thing. You know, it was a centrally planned economy. So Gorbachev came in to introduce a market-like reform, market-like revitalization. And that was when he introduced perestroika. And later, he also introduced the glasnost. The glasnost, he actually meant openness, liberalism, just like perestroika. So openness, that everyone is free to at least give a constructive criticism of the government, give us advice, give us information, tell us where we are not doing well, and we'll be able to correct ourselves. So he actually started what we call criticism. He opened the door for criticism through his policy of glasnost, and trying to also make changed the state-led form of the economy in the then Soviet Union to a market-like form in its policy of perestroika. And all of these things, to an extent, he never knew that though it could bring certain reforms, liberalism, market-like nature of that economy of the then Soviet Union, but at the same time, he never envisaged that that could lead to the collapse of the Soviet Union, particularly its glasnost policy of openness, because the glasnost policy was criticized to have led to certain agitations, certain separatist attitude, and some other pockets of violence in the then Soviet Union by the nationalists. And again, even in doing all of these things, even when the citizens of some countries in Eastern Europe were protesting against their leaders, their communist leaders, under Gorbachev refused to intervene. He did not intervene. He left those communist leaders.
Yeah, I mean, sorry
to them to their fate and problems.
Now, sorry to just cut in there,
so
because
as a result of that,
that was actually what led to the coup that was planned against him. And I want you to talk about that, because when we later had Russian presidents like Boris Yeltsin and, of course, Vladimir Putin, they never liked Gorbachev because of those kind of decisions. And, of course,
I was coming to it.
Go ahead.
I was coming to it because basically all of these policies, from perestroika to glasnost, from market-like nature of the economy he wanted, to the reforms, to democratic nature he was trying to portray, and even to the glasnost of the openness, whereby the government can be criticized, was never accepted by the Soviet oligarchs, the Russian oligarchs, the hardliners of communism. They never liked it. And that was why, even after he accepted and he was saying those communist states, those communist countries in Eastern Europe whose citizens were protesting against them, he didn't help them, he didn't make any pronouncements, he didn't even intervene. So that led to the reasons why back at home, there was a coup against his government, but the coup was foiled. The coup failed. So when the coup failed, he had to agree to the dissolution of the then Soviet Union. He agreed to the dissolution. He also agreed to the reunification of Germany. You know, Germany before that time, during the Cold War years, was divided into East and West. So, and that of the East was under the Soviet control. It was under the Soviet control, while that of the West was under the Western allies or Western control. So as a result of that, after the coup, he agreed to the dissolution of the Soviet Union. He also agreed to the reunification of Germany into one united Germany. So all of these things, and after he did that, he resigned, he left the government. That was why when other leaders came after him, they were not happy with him, because they saw that, they believed that he was one who led to the disintegration and the collapse of the former Soviet Union. And to them, Russia lost out. That was why they didn't like the policies he ran. But globally, Gorbachev's influence is still felt today, because he was a leader who wanted democracy, who wanted some reforms, who wanted some development. If you look at the Cold War years before he came in and the early period he came in, you discover that the Soviet Union were trying to struggle to match up with the standard of the United States. So, but that was when he decided to introduce our perestroika, so that there will be a market-like nature of the economy. And later, he also introduced some liberal reforms of openness. That was when he brought in the policy of glasnost.
All right, just
the government will be open to criticisms.
Yeah, sorry, I have to cut in. Just before I let you go, what exactly would you say was the relations between then Soviet Union under him and Africa in terms of what we could have benefited, including Nigeria?
Unfortunately, you know, it was seriously much the period of the Cold War when he was the leader of Russia, or call it the Soviet Union, and Africa. During that time, majority of African countries were pro-West. They were pro-West. Only few African countries like Tanzania, Zambia, and maybe one or two other ones who were actually pro-Soviet Union, who actually, to an extent, do enjoy certain things from his government. But beyond that, even after he left government, Gorbachev had always been, though a pro-Russian, but a ardent believer in democracy.
All right.
In democracy, in liberalism, in market reforms, and all of that. And that's why, from the global standing, he's so much loved.
Yeah.
He's so much loved, and that's why there is so much encomiums coming to him now after his death at the age of 91.
All right, we must thank you so much, Dr. Joshua Bolarinwa, Head of Security Strategic Studies, Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, for helping us understand this gentleman. And you put it succinctly, because of his love for democracy, lots of encomiums pouring out on his behalf. And we must thank you immensely for helping us to understand these issues, and we hope to have you again some other time.